Welcome to the Big Ben Show with me, Lester Holloway. Plenty coming up for you in the next hour. As always, we'll be talking about the Labour Party. I know we've touched on the leadership elections briefly, but we'll be going into it in more detail today. The New Statesman, which is the magazine, if you like, for the Labour diehards, are saying that it is absolutely certain now that Jeremy Corbyn, who's from the left of the Labour Party, will win the leadership elections. Are you coming round to the idea of Jeremy Corbyn leading the Labour Party, or do you back any of the other candidates, Andy Burnham, Yvette Cooper or Liz Kendall? There's also a row going on in the papers. We'll be looking at talking about how many of the 600,000 people that have registered as Labour supporters are in fact entryists, perhaps Conservative supporters, or maybe even people from the far left that have been kicked out of Labour Party previously. Labour are going through their lists and trying to sort it out, but we'll be chewing the cud here with two very special guests. Also, Tony Blair is in the papers today saying that Labour are walking off a cliff with their eyes shut. But is that really the case, or is it the case of pent-up frustration, perhaps, that the Labour Party has not been strong enough in challenging right-wing idioms over the last 20 or 25 years? Are they having a moment? We'll be taking your calls as well. The number will be on the screen shortly, 0208 808 0693, that's 0208 808 0693. And do join the conversation, because that's what the Big Ben Show is all about. Now, introducing my first guest, Abena Apong-Ezare. Welcome to the show. And you're the Deputy Leader of the Labour Party in Bexley Council, and you're a councillor as well. So you must be obviously taking a very close interest in the Labour leadership elections. Who's your money on?
Who's my money on? To be honest, I haven't really fully decided who I'm backing. I think I'm leaning towards Yvette.
Yvette Cooper, yes.
Yvette Cooper. The reason
You've only got 3 days to make up your mind.
I know.
Because ballot papers go out.
I know. The reason it's been very tough for me, actually, in terms of deciding who to be the next leader. I'm not very keen on Andy Burnham because I just feel that his policies don't really reflect with me, and I feel that he has been flip-flopping on certain things, such as the welfare bill. Which originally he said he was against it and said that he'll be in favour of it.
Of course, Andy Burnham is saying that he only voted, along with the whip, to preserve party unity, because he's saying that if he became leader of the Labour Party, how could he possibly impose discipline if the first thing he did, or the last thing he did before becoming leader, was to break party discipline? Do you not have any sympathy with that?
I do understand that, because as a councillor as well, we also have to fulfil the whip. But I mean, if it was something that he really believed wasn't right, then I think that he should have said he should have voted against it instead of saying publicly afterwards. But for me, with the leadership campaign, I just really want it to be over, because I think we just need a leader to start making sure that people's interests are reflected properly, because at the moment the Tories, the opposition, the government are doing a lot of cuts that are affecting a lot of people. And I feel with the whole leadership election, we have taken our eyes off the ball.
So to what degree do you think that Jeremy Corbyn is really riding on a crest of a wave because he's the anti-austerity candidate?
I think with Jeremy Corbyn, he has I can see why a lot of people identify themselves with him. He's reached out to a lot of younger people that are disillusioned with Labour Party politics. I know some people that are voting for Jeremy Corbyn.
George Galloway had the same effect when he ran as a parliamentary candidate a while back.
But on the other side, it's brought in so much infighting within the party. Tony Blair said that whoever supports him needs a heart transport. One of his advisors said anyone that supports Jeremy Corbyn is a moron. I just think that we just need to put our differences aside and just come together, because one of the things that is happening at the moment is changes to childcare, which the Tories during the election period pledged for 15 to 13 hours a week for 3 to 4 year olds, that they will implement childcare. That is completely flawed, and we haven't really been challenging that. And on the doorstep, we were offering 25 hours a week, and it was actually more credible. And I think we should be highlighting actually this Conservative government hasn't actually delivered on their promises.
I was talking to a Labour supporting friend actually yesterday, and putting this point that actually the Labour Party seems to be, tearing itself apart. You've got comments from Tony Blair, from Alistair Campbell, who used to be his spin doctor, and so on. Well, basically, the opinion was that that I got back was actually, yes, that may be the case, but this is necessary because the Labour Party hasn't really had this type of honest debate about where it really stands on the political spectrum, and how principled, how left it should be. For quite some time, the previous Labour elections have more been, beauty contests essentially, and there hasn't been this. So surely this might be painful now, but in some ways it's necessary.
I think you're right about that actually, because if you look at the amount of people that have registered to vote, it's over 600,000 people.
Which is extraordinary.
Which is extraordinary. And also the amount of people that have joined the party as well, which is completely amazing. In my CLP, we're seeing new members joining. Constituency Labour parties. We're seeing more people join the party, and it's kind of revitalised it a bit. In terms of we're having.
Why did they join? Presumably you've spoken to some of these new members and asked them why did you join Labour?
People have joined for various reasons.
What's the overriding reason?
Okay,
obviously?
Some people feel that where they work in the public sector, they help people, vulnerable people, and they've seen how the cuts have affected people. One person I spoke to in particular works in a homeless shelter, and they were telling me on that particular day, by 1 o'clock they'd run out of food, and there was no way they could feed people. And they felt that the welfare bill, which has recently been put through, would actually destroy a lot of people, and that people need the support.
This is the Conservatives' proposal to cut £12 billion from the welfare budget.
Yeah.
And many people are asking, well, how can that possibly be? Because the welfare budget's already been cut to the bone previously. So yeah, I know that's an issue that's rumbling on. I wanted to bring in my other guest, Maurice McLeod, who's a journalist, but also you're on the board of Race on the Agenda, and also a director of Media Diversified, that are also good friends of ours on Ben Television. Now you're going to be reviewing the papers, but just to get your views as well on the Labour leadership contest, because it's in the papers quite a bit. Looking at the front page of the Eye, just hold it up there if you can get the camera on it. It says Labour at War, which is perhaps the strongest front page that we've seen about the Labour leadership contest so far, but it's all reaching a climax. Is it? Are the papers souping this up, or is this real? Do you think?
No, I think this is real, and I think it's great. To be honest, I really disagree. I know that maybe I was a Labour member, and I completely lost my love for the party over the last 20 years, and I've rejoined. Specifically to vote, and if Corbyn gets in, I will absolutely campaign for Labour and be an active Labour.
So, are you an entryist?
I'm an interest, but by this ridiculous definition. So, if Labour win over loads of Tory and Lib Dem voters, then it's great politics. If Labour win over loads of left-wing voters, then they're kidnapping the party in some way. I completely disagree. I think Labour needs this conversation, because to me, Labour has just been Tory light for so long, and people go, okay, they're better than the Tories, well, let's vote them in because they're a bit better. But let's have something different.
But there was this argument that actually it's not in a way the job of the Labour Party to necessarily be radical left. It's actually there to win elections, to be the more socially conscious party, and to turf out the
change the country, not
Tories.
The job is to change the country. I think that's where, which I know you're going to say you can only do that by winning elections.
Yes.
But first and foremost is having policies that will actually make a difference. And I actually think that over the last few years, the Labour's policies haven't been that different, and what Corbyn's offering is something different. So I think that's more important than just looking electable.
But is it? I know you wanted to respond to something that Maurice has just said, though. But I wanted to come in with a question first, if you like. I read all the party manifestos before the general election just gone, and I thought that Labour's election manifesto was significantly different from the Conservatives. Is it about the way that the Labour Party presents itself that actually, when you looked at the leadership debates that went on, you didn't see a massive difference between the parties, but actually when you went into more detail, you did. So does Labour have a presentation problem, perhaps?
You mean in terms of representation?
In terms of getting over to the general public, exactly where it stands on issues.
I can agree with you in terms of the fact that the party has become a bit still in terms of its representation. I think in the general election, I spoke to people that would normally vote Labour, and they weren't voting Labour. They were actually either voting UKIP or the Conservatives. And these are the people that I think that we have let down over a number of years because they felt that their issues weren't being represented by the party.
There was an interesting poll, though, which came out, so that was actually showing that it was questioning supporters of other political parties and saying, if this person became leader of the Labour Party, how much more likely would you be to vote Labour? And it was interesting that a small but significant slice of UKIP supporters would be more likely to vote for Jeremy Corbyn, which would be sort of, in a way, you think that's quite illogical, but certainly the commentator Owen Jones has been going around saying that at every opportunity.
I think that, I know I've spoken to some of my friends, because a lot of my friends aren't political. They've said that they would normally vote Labour, but they felt that they couldn't identify themselves in particular with the leader of the party at the time, which was Ed Miliband. But I don't think he is solely to blame for the reasons why we lost. I think there was a wide various reasons. I think the reason that people find Jeremy Corbyn quite appealing is he's very different. He has his own opinion. He doesn't just always, go with the party. He's willing to put his neck on the line and speak on a wide variety of issues. I've met him in person. He's also a really pleasant person as well. So I can see why people identify themselves with him. But I think with the party, we've just got to come together now and be united. Whoever becomes the leader, I'm actually willing to support them. But I just think that if it is Jeremy Corbyn, I just don't want there to be too much infighting because he only got through with 13 nominations from MPs. So he's got to try and gain that trust within the party, and I just don't want people to be plotting.
Absolutely. You mentioned that you're slightly edging towards Yvette Cooper.
Yes.
What is it about her that attracts you?
I think with Yvette, what I like about the fact is that she's raised about the bedroom tax in terms of the fact that it's impacted people. She's also very interested in terms of providing an alternative to what the Tories are offering, and I think that's really important.
Hasn't her campaign been a bit low-key? She's been accused of, in a way, being trying to be be inoffensive to everyone in order to pick up the votes of everyone who's cheesed off with everyone else.
I've heard that from a lot of people as well, but I mean, for me, I think, to be honest, she's the only one I can really identify with at the moment. So,
interesting. What do you make of that, Maurice?
Well, the inoffensive to everyone, that to me sounds like what Labour have been trying to do for the last 20 years. It's, when people say Labour lost the last election because Ed Miliband was too left-wing. No, they lost the last election because Ed Miliband, to me, the party wasn't fully behind Miliband anyway. It was kind of wishy-washy, and it was all about his presentation, and then when he couldn't eat a sandwich properly and stupid things like that, the press had a field day, but there was no groundswell behind him supporting him. I don't think Corbyn would have that problem. The 600,000 people that are joining Labour now will make sure that that's not the case. I
agree, but he also has to have the support of all the MPs in Parliament. I mean, if he puts forward a motion and they don't support him, then he would be in a lot of difficulty.
Because wasn't one of Ed Miliband's problems is that most of the shadow cabinet voted for his brother?
Right. Yeah. Sure. I do think there's a problem with the Parliamentary Labour Party. I think that it's drifted so far. The MPs, the intake has drifted so far that it would need a Corbyn election win with a load of new MPs who have I would say traditional Labour values at heart, but I know that's a controversial thing to say. It would need them in power for him to have the groundswell of support in Parliament that he needs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interestingly, in this election intake, there has actually been a lot of traditional MPs from traditional backgrounds that have come in, and they're the ones that have actually been supporting Jeremy Corbyn. And actually, when I heard them do their maiden speeches, it was really impressive, like Angela Rayner, Clive Lewis. They're MPs to watch out for.
Absolutely,
but they're
yes.
not actually high-profile politicians, so a lot of people don't know about them yet. But I think they've been doing a lot of work.
A lot of people have high
behind
hopes
the
for Clive Lewis, who's the MP for one of the Norwich seats, and he's a black MP as well, of course. Let's actually have a look at some of the papers, Maurice. So you've been looking at the papers, which are scattered, scattered before us. What's the first one that you're picking up here?
Well, just because I always enjoy getting annoyed by the Daily Mail.
Yes, who doesn't?
The story that jumped out on at me today, the Mail, was one in six workers, one in six UK workers are foreign, basically saying that
if you look back far enough in Britain's history, everyone was foreign.
Of course,
there you go. Yes.
Of course. Unemployment rose today slightly for the second quarter, I think.
It's risen particularly in London as well.
Yeah, but one thing that came out of the figures is that non-UK born employment has actually risen. So all these migrant workers that everyone's been so upset about and trying to stop from getting, crossing the seas and coming home from Calais, they're coming in and they're working and they're putting into the system, which to be honest, everyone knows that, but papers like the Mail have gone out of their way to sort of spread a different story. But when figures come out that even the Mail can't deny, I do enjoy that, because it's...
But the Mail seems to have balanced this with a very negative story towards immigrants. I'll just hold it up here if you can get the camera on it. There we go. It says, Sudanese migrants move into plush hotel with pool and spa, and you pay. Now, this has come out at the same time as other newspapers have actually been covering the crisis that's going on in the Greek island of Kos, where thousands of immigrants or refugees have been locked into a football stadium without water or anything else, and been baking in the heat and have been fainting at a rapid rate. In fact, it's covered on the front page of the Metro there. A big contrast, therefore, between the Mail's approach, which is saying that all these immigrants from Africa are living the life of Riley, and the reality that we see.
Well, of course, and I have to admit, I haven't read the Mail story yet, the Sudanese story, but I would wager that what's happened here is that there's not enough spaces to put these people up, and so temporarily they've been put into a hotel. That, that's a problem with not having enough spaces. That's not a problem of these migrants demanding hotels or something, which is how they've kind of made it sound like, they've come over here and they're living an amazing life. Try being a migrant in Britain and see if it's an amazing life.
Well, the Daily Mail, quite frankly, pulls this trick all the time.
Of course it does.
Including with the working class as well, don't they? Just one other thing, actually, I wanted to ask Avinair about is that the Foreign Secretary, Philip Hammond, has been quoted as saying that African immigrants at Calais are marauding. What do you make of that?
I think his comments are actually appalling. I think he's completely out of touch. I don't think also most of the migrants are from Africa, regardless of where they're from. I think some of them are fleeing from countries such as Syria. I think he doesn't understand the scale of the problem. The reason that people are fleeing is because their lives are in danger, or they're suffering from persecution, or poverty is so poor. And also, I think he's scaremongering people as well by making out the scale of the problem is much higher than what it really is, when actually it's just a small, significant amount of people that are coming over. And, I think he should be highlighting this. And, I think it's shameful, and he won't apologise for his comments.
Shameful is the word.
Yeah.
I mean, when you consider, okay, so yesterday there was a family, family of 5 arrested for planning to go to Syria. Okay, understandable, because even going to Syria is a terrorist act. But here you have people leaving Syria, but oh no, your country's not bad enough for you to get asylum. So there seems to be mixed messages. For me, that seems to be a mixed message. Either the country is so bad that no one can go there, and everyone that wants to come out, we should give them free entry into Europe. But we're sort of saying, oh no, we're not sure if they really are seeking asylum, if their situation really is that bad. It feels like they're not even sure what what their message is there.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. Do join in the conversation as well. You can call in, the number will be on the screen shortly, 0208 808 0693. What other stories have caught your eye, Maurice?
One that I spotted in The Guardian, which I don't have it to hand, but one I spotted in The Guardian earlier was David Oyelowo, sorry, is officially...
Some of the calls that we're calling into.
I apologise in advance. Okay,
Yes,
I apologise in advance. Is officially now the first black Bond because the new Bond film Trigger Mortis, the new Bond book. These things come out first as audiobooks, and the Ian Fleming Foundation or whatever have asked him to be the voice of Bond.
So he's beaten Idris Elba and Colin Salmon as well.
But we can't see him, so we can hear we can hear him. But we
hold
can't.
on a second. How can you have a black Bond that you can't actually see? Well, why can't you see the black Bond?
Well, that's I think it always makes me laugh.
Are
Britain,
they just trying to break us in slowly?
I think that might be it. Britain are very, very, very precious about Bonds, but he in the books he's dark haired or whatever, and we've had a ginger Bond and a blonde Bond and a Scottish Bond and kind of an American-y Bond. The idea of having a black one, oh no, it's a British institution. It becomes a massive deal suddenly. Of course there'll be a black Bond, whether it'll be David or Idris or me, who knows? Shaken, not stirred, who knows? It always makes me chuckle how upset some people seem to be about these things. So yeah, well done, David. He's a great actor. Obviously, we saw him in Selma and in The Butler and various other films. He's a great actor, and he deserves everything he gets.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. Anything else that you've got there in front of you?
What else did I spot?
Well, let me pick up something, which is the row going on over the Chelsea physio, who's a female physio. Her name is Eva Canero. And she was called on to the field to treat Eden Hazard, who's obviously a Chelsea player, because he was down and holding his leg. And she then entered into a touchline row with the manager, Jose Mourinho, and she's since been demoted within Chelsea, and she's been relegated to the club's training ground. And there seems to be a bit of a backlash against Jose Mourinho on this one. The back page of the Mail there, if we can get a shot on it, says "No way back," as opposed to the "No way Jose" headlines that we see most often. Do you have some sympathy with her? And is there an element of sexism going on here as well? I think there's sexism both in the way Jose reacted, because he said that she doesn't understand football, which I don't think you'd say that about I don't think you'd have said that about a guy. Although there was the male physio. There's two people have been demoted, haven't they? Which if we're talking about sexism, it's interesting that every single paper focuses on the rather attractive woman and ignores the middle-aged physio. It's interesting that if we're talking about sexism, let's be honest that the media are doing it as well. But Jose is the master at mind games. What was the result even? What was Chelsea's result? It was 2-2 against Swansea. So they dropped points. Yes. They dropped points, and to take away from... Well, they were left with 9 men on the field at that time, so they had two men off the field. Yeah. And so Jose was objecting in a way to another player being taken off the field and leaving them with if a player is injured, two players short. If a player is injured, the job of the medical staff is to look after that player, and she acted absolutely in the right way as far as I can see. The player was down on the ground. Apparently the referee looked over at the bench twice to sort of say, are you going to come and do something about it? So she went and did her job. I think he has behaved appallingly, but he's Jose, it's what he does. Chelsea fans will love him, everyone else hates him, and it'll carry on that way. And she will absolutely get. She'll be at some other. She'll probably be at Man City with your injury. Of course, the association that represents all the physios has come out in her support and said that she's been treated appallingly. Abena, what do you make of this? Do you think there's any sexism going on here?
So I'm not a massive into football, but I have caught this particular article, and I agree with you. I think she was just doing her job as a doctor. I don't see why Jose is making a big deal out of it. I understand because he was worried about losing players and he wanted to have enough players on the pitch. But if she hadn't have done that and something had happened, she would have been probably held responsible.
Absolutely, yes. And of course, the Daily Mail, always whenever any sort of vaguely attractive woman is featured, I'll delve into her Facebook to try and find pictures. So there's a picture of her eating a cake, which is taking up the majority of page 3. Obviously, that's of relevant public interest. And also of her dressed as Cleopatra at a party. As well, which is absolutely fantastic. So well done to the Daily Mail.
I think all medics, we should see how they get dressed as Cleopatra. I think that's a really important
absolutely
element of their job.
We're just going to take a break now for a couple of minutes. We'll be coming back with both our guests, Abena Apong Azare, who's a Labour activist and councillor, and also Maurice McLeod, a journalist and activist within the anti-racist sector as well. We'll also be talking about diversity within political parties. So stay tuned, and we'll be back with you in a couple of minutes.
Keywrite, specializing in all aspects of property lettings and management. If you have a property, tenanted or empty, contact Keywrite on 0208 808 5789, where you'll be sure of expertise, competitive pricing and first-class service. Visit www.keywrite.co.uk. Telephone 0208 808 5789. Keywrite, the right key for your property investment. Keywrite, specializing in all aspects of property lettings and management. If you have a property, tenanted or empty, contact Keywrite on 0208 808 5789, where you'll be sure of expertise, competitive pricing and first-class service. Visit www.keywrite.co.uk. Telephone 0208 808 5789. Keywrite, the right key for your property investment.
Federal government invites you to Nigerians in Diaspora Day. The 2015 Diaspora Day celebration will be marked with a National Diaspora Day and Conference with the theme Diaspora and Nigerian Change Agenda. Date August 24th and 25. Venue the State House Conference Center, Presidential Villa, Abuja. This event will be declared open and closed by His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari. Please register online at www.nigeriadiasporaday.com. Announcer Mrs. Ibukun Odushote.
Abena, before we go to Maurice and the papers, we also wanted to raise the issue about diversity in political parties, because we have, perhaps for the first time in the London elections, more black and Asian candidates running than ever before for the Labour Party. We've got Sadiq Khan, Diane Abbott and David Lammy. There's a couple of BME people running for the Green Party as well, one of whom we had on last week on this show, which is Rashid Nix, and also Hamid, I've forgotten the rest of his name actually, but he'll never forgive me for that, who's also for the Green Party. Fortunately, there are none for the Conservative parties or Liberal Democrats at the moment, although there were a few people putting themselves forward for the Lib Dem nomination who were black and Asian, but none of them got through, unfortunately. In many ways, it's sort of looking up, isn't it, for diversity, or is that just, if you like, the face of it, but there are other issues behind the scenes?
I mean, yeah, I think it is looking up, it's positive, but I think we also need to do more in terms of representation, in terms of making sure if we do have diversity, we have people that represent a wide range of issues. And I do think, especially in the Labour Party, even though we have been the champion in terms of making sure we do have people from ethnic minorities, I do think that in the Labour hierarchy, it's still not representative in terms of people from ethnic minorities in senior positions, not just in party politics as MPs, but also in local parties holding the position of chair of their constituency Labour Party, or also holding secretary positions, which is quite senior in the party. and also at local councils as well in terms of representation.
But you're doing very well in Bexley because obviously you're deputy leader of the group there, but there are other black councillors, some of whom have just only recently been elected as well.
Yeah, so in Bexley we've gone from one black councillor out of 63 to 6 of us now, which is great.
Are they all African?
Yeah, some African, some British born.
Okay, yes.
But I think
because the African community in Bexley is rising, quite a pace.
Yes, especially in the north of the borough. But I still think we have a long way to go because I think 6 is not particularly great, to be honest. And I know from experience that it has been quite challenging in terms of, some people have been happy to see you, whereas some people, they're not used to, seeing that kind of change. And it helps you to raise issues that haven't really been addressed specifically, especially at council level. It has for me been a massive eye-opener.
So what sort of issues would you be raising in the council chamber?
In terms of things such as, talking about issues that concern certain communities, they haven't really been brought up, but because, I guess I come from that kind of community, I'm aware of it, so I kind of push to raise awareness about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. Of course, many of these issues affect all political parties, so shouldn't they be getting their heads together somehow? Of course, there was the Speakers' Conference quite a few years ago, which looked at racial diversity across the political parties, but since then, parties have not been talking to each other about these issues.
Yeah, and I think in the past it's always been left to organisations such as Operation Black Vote,
to try and knock heads together,
to raise awareness about this. And I do feel, maybe I'm talking about the Labour Party, I do feel that there's now a recognition that things need to change. And I think it's down to that report that was done by Britain's Future, which showed about 1 million ethnic minorities voted for the Tories. But I don't, why did it have to,
There was some doubt about that though. Of course, we have to wait for the proper electoral survey to come out, and it's coming out in bits and pieces at the moment, but we haven't got the full picture yet.
Yeah.
And some people say, including I think some experts have been looking at this, that British Future, which is run by Sunda Katwala, who's a bit of a sort of Labour-ish supporter, has grossly overestimated the number of, or the proportion of black and Asian people that actually did vote for the Conservatives at the next election. But we'll have to see. We haven't got the full figures yet.
I was going to say that survey is a snapshot because only about 3,000 people did it, and I actually think it might actually be much higher in terms of people that didn't vote for Labour, that voted for other parties. I also think that there were also ethnic minorities that voted for UKIP, so you shouldn't make the assumption that they just voted for the Tories, because I did speak to people on the doorstep that said they would vote for UKIP.
It almost seems crazy because it's the Labour Party. We're on the 50th anniversary now of the first Racial Relations Act. They've introduced all the Racial Relations Acts. In fact, they introduced all of the Equalities Acts, and they have historically more black MPs than any other party. The Tories have been catching up on that score, but they didn't quite bypass Labour at the last election. Morris, why is it the Labour Party, which has actually done so much perhaps to raise the issue of tackling race inequality, doing so badly amongst black electorates?
Well, like we say, are we convinced that it's doing so badly? Are we as you just sort of poured a little bit of doubt on those findings anyway? So we're not sure, but and there seems to be a lot of people adding one and one, going, oh, therefore this is what's happening, and we need to go in that direction. I'm not personally that convinced, but I think for the longest time, organisations like Operation Black Vote have been saying, Labour in particular, have just gone, oh well, we've got the black vote, let's not even worry about them, let's concentrate on Mondeo Man, I think they used to talk about in the 80s,
or Worcester Woman,
or Worcester Woman, or all these other wonderful imaginary people. Instead of
or even people that they happen to bump into on Hampstead Heath, who are not black either. So
that's a different thing. But I do well. I can only talk for me. As I said, I've drifted away from the Labour Party. I feel like it's had less interest in the things that I'm interested in over time, and I'm sure if that's me, then that's other people as well. I think that that if Labour gets back towards its roots, which are working people, that by definition will bring in more minority communities, just because of where we still are economically in this country.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry, I also think that we also need to look at the barriers in terms of, especially if you're from an ethnic minority background, it's quite difficult to put yourself forward because there's a lot of costs associated with it. And I know that Tom Watson spoke about looking at bursaries, so that would help people from ethnic minority backgrounds and also working class backgrounds to actually stand for parliamentary positions. Because
it's a very good idea. And of course, Tom Watson is the front runner to be the deputy leader of the Labour Party at the moment. If you've got, do join in. You've been very quiet out there, so the number is on can be on the screen shortly. Join in the conversation 0208 808 0693. Maurice, you've got more papers in front of you.
Yeah, I'm flicking through trying to find stories that have sort of a relevance to our community.
Well, let's bring in. Yeah, go on.
So one that I spotted in the Telegraph, which I don't have in front of me, was that apparently 19,000 elderly people have signed these pay after you die contracts with their local council. So that what that means is these are people who need care in their later years and can't afford it from their savings, but have over the years accumulated houses that are worth money, and they sign these deals with the council. That means they run up a debt, and then once they die, that money comes out of their homes. And the Telegraph, of course, was sort of saying this is terrible because these homes need to be handed on to their kids, and it's a middle class right to inherit a home, really, isn't it? And I was just thinking, while I actually agree that it should be free and high quality care because our elders are valuable. I think that the West doesn't value its elders in the way that it should. I still think that while we don't have that all-engrossing welfare system that I'd like to see, if someone has got resources, then what's wrong with some of those being used, especially after their death, to pay towards something?
Yeah, but surely that many parents will buy houses because they want to pass it on to their parents. Otherwise, they might as well have rented for their whole life.
Sure, of course, but many people do lots of things that they want to do. What we're talking about here is people who unfortunately have become ill and have needed to use society. So, they're using resources that are all of ours. And then when they die, it's like, okay, that's great. They've had those resources, and here you go,
Of course,
little Emily. Here's a £1 million house for you to.
But why is the state not actually providing that?
That's what it should be. Yeah. Of course, the state should be providing it, but for everybody, though, it just seems that
it's also about the quality of care as well, because you've got a choice as to, what type of home you go to as well, and of course the private homes that are nicest care tend to be private and cost the most as well.
I think we all deserve to be looked after in our later years, and also I think that one of the things that's not mentioned in all this is sort of the breakdown of community, because I've had this conversation with my brothers and sisters about, we all live very close to my mum. She would be really cross if she heard me even putting her in this conversation, because she's very healthy and will be around for a long time, I'm sure. But we will do everything in our power we will be the caregivers, because that's what she did for us. It's but when people move abroad and have to move had to move out of their homes because of housing issues and whatever, it's very hard to keep communities intact. I think that's something that really gets undermined. The value of community doesn't get taken on board when we're thinking about these things.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. And of course, if you are Maurice McLeod's mother, you're welcome to call in to 0208 0693. Now, another story which has not really been in the papers, but it's certainly been all over social media, is Didier Drogba, the former Chelsea striker and legend, who is building 5 hospitals.
When I knew I was coming on the show this morning, I saw this story on social media yesterday and tweeted about it, and lots of people retweeted it, and so Didier Drogba, footballer, as I know you said you're not into it, but you know who he is, okay, he's one of his many charitable things. He said he's going to build 5 hospitals in the Ivory Coast. He's built the first one for $1 million that's going to look after 50,000 poor kids and women mainly from the area in I think it's in Abidjan, and it's not in any newspaper. Whereas David Beckham launches a new pair of underwear, and it's like, oh, isn't he great? It just feels like there's so.
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of coverage there's been on the dummy that one of the young Beckhams was still sucking at 5 years old.
Yeah.
But yet no coverage of Didier Drogba.
It's a shame, because it would be good to hear for once a story about the, you know, we're very quick to criticise these millionaire footballers who don't give anything back. This guy, and I'm not a Chelsea fan, you know, but I have a lot of time for Didier Drogba, and I just, it's a shame that, especially with the social media buzz that there is about it, that none of the papers have thought that was a story worth picking up.
Yeah.
I'm
Have you come
surprised
across
at
that story?
I did actually, and I was really impressed. I don't know, impressed by it. I don't know where I picked it up, but I don't think it was from the mainstream media. And I also saw that for a while he's been given money to schools and helping with school supplies, and I was like, wow.
Of course, a lot of African players, particularly behind the scenes, do actually
that,
do
yeah.
charitable work and certainly support, you know, their families as well, and extended families, as Emmanuel Adebayo always has learned to his cost. But that's a whole other matter which we've covered here previously. Any other stories that you picked up, Maurice?
He says okay, so I'm seeing this kind of made me chuckle, not chuckle, sorry, people, and I know people get angry at me even saying that this made me chuckle, but this dog Uggie, which was the dog in The Artist.
This is the film star, Jack
and he
Russell.
passed away, and that's sad, but there does seem to, you know, it always makes me, it always slightly amuses me about how into their animals the British are. This is a big story, and people are sad about this dog who lived to be 13, which I can't do the maths, but seems really old for a dog.
But it is it is a dog that, in fairness, has its paw print in the Hall of Fame.
Oh wow, does it?
Down Hollywood Boulevard.
Okay, that's fair enough. But yeah, okay. Would you recognise him? Well, not now if he was walking up the street, but it's a dog. At the end of the day, people seem very interested in this thing. It's like, yeah, it's not a massive story for me, I have to admit. So
yes, yeah, there is a wonderful picture of the dog Uggie, if we can get a picture on it, that if you can see there. But he's actually holding an Oscar in his mouth, which is just like a bone, which is very, very. And he's the Mail say that he was. Of course, he's got a whole page dedicated to him.
Of course,
in the Daily Mail, which
excellent.
is.
You know.
Is there going to be a big funeral?
There'll be a state funeral, I'm sure. The Prime Minister will be there, and they'll all link hands and walk down the road. It'll be really moving.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. And what do you think of the upcoming issues for the next week? Of course, so, you know, the Labour Party finishes its, or the ballot papers go out.
Yeah.
So I guess it's all up to the members now as to what they do. And of course, the mayoral elections are coming up as well. Who is your money on, Maurice?
I was just saying earlier, I haven't been very, as a Londoner, I haven't been very engaged with the.
You did go over to the Operation Black Vote at Merrill Hustings because I saw you. We sat next to each other.
Sat next to each other.
Indeed, we did.
I have a soft spot for Sadiq because he's Sadiq Khan. He's my local MP, and we were in the Labour Party together. I said I was in the Labour Party back in the day. I think we joined roughly the same time and were in the Labour Party together back in those days. So and he knows my mum. Again, 2 call outs for my mum. So I feel like I
I feel like I could do the same.
I know which side my bread's buttered. I like him personally. I like what he's saying. So, you know, without having gone through the policies of a fine-tooth comb, I know I don't lean towards David Lammy personally.
Yes, yeah.
But yeah, so I think I'm warm to Sadiq.
I have to say actually that Sadiq Khan is the only male candidate for the Labour Party we haven't actually got on the show yet. Although we did get Leroy Logan, who seemed to be his sort of spokesman, on Earth, so he waxed lyrical in favour of. But we've had all the others, including Tessa Jowell. And your money's on Tessa, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm publicly supporting Tessa Jowell. The reason that I'm supporting her is because I think she would be the best mayor for London. And also, where I am in Bexley, we're an outer borough, and I feel that in order for us to get a Labour mayor, we need to do a lot of work in outer boroughs. And she's the only candidate that's actually come to Bexley to speak to residents to find out what their concerns are in the borough. And
Of course, Tooting is pretty much out of London, isn't it? Out of
I'm
central
talking about
London.
Bexley.
Tooting? Did you
Tooting,
say?
yes.
We're not out of London, we're right in the heart of London. What are you
Well, I
talking
don't mean
about?
out of London, I
Crazy.
mean out of central London, out
Yeah.
of central London.
And also, I like some of her ideas in terms of tackling the gender pay audit, making sure that police wear body armour, which I think is really important, because I do think that.
This is what Harriet Harman got criticised for many, many years ago when she walked
Yeah.
down Peckham with body armour on. And
Is
so,
she also
Sorry,
saying...
body cameras.
Oh, body cameras.
Sorry.
Right,
Oh,
yes.
Yeah,
Yes, body cameras. With you,
yeah.
absolutely. And of course, yesterday's news, we don't have it in front of us, but the Evening Standard had news that Tessa Jowell wanted to ban sexist adverts on the tube as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to make a huge difference to the world, but I suppose it
I
is
think-
something that...
I think it will actually,
Yes, it
in terms
will.
of like helping people with their body confidence,
yes.
because I have seen some of the adverts in Underground, and I thought it's completely outrageous, and it's taken people complaining to the Advertising Standards Agency before action has been taken.
Absolutely, yes. And also, just before we wrap up, because we've just literally got seconds to go, what is it like, being a councillor? Because many people watching this will have, perhaps, might be thinking about it, but still wavering on the edge. What's going to push them over to running for their local
I think
council?
it's really rewarding. I think you get to look at the issues that concern a lot of residents, and if you're passionate about things, it could be just like how your bins are delivered or effective planning. I really urge people to stand for it. And also, I know that people complain about the fact that there's a lack of representations and their issues aren't being represented, but you really need to be in the system to try and make changes. And
Okay, you need to be in it to win it.
Yeah,
So we're just coming to the end of the show, so just time to thank you so much,
Okay,
Abena
thank you.
Pongazare and Maurice McLeod for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you both. We'll be back next Thursday, same time, same place. It's at 1 o'clock. So have a great rest of the day and week as well. And I'll see you next week.
The 2015